Carol Jacoby here. I want to show you what you can do with a powerful Excel function called Vlookup. I'll show you how to put a table together from pieces, and also how to change numerical data into categories. We're going to be doing both of those using a function called Vlookup. If you're not familiar with it, stick with me. You may be intimidated by functions because they look terrible. But the best way to learn functions, and they're very handy, is one at a time as you need them. And if you understand Vlookup, it'll really give you a good start on picking up other functions that you want to learn. So, Vlookup in its basic form looks up things in tables like the ones you'll see in the sheet called Lookup. So click on that. Now let's say somebody says to me, I want to know what the occupation is for customer number 6848. And yeah, you can look at that little table and you can find 6848 right there in the first column, and that's sales, and that's easy. But imagine you had an enormous table and you had to go through it line by line and look for that particular customer number. So we'll let Excel do that for us. That's really tedious. Here's the way you do it. We're going to write a formula, and formulas start with equals. So that tells Excel, here comes the formula. This formula is just going to consist of the function Vlookup. So we type that in. And we have to give Vlookup some arguments. We have to tell it what to use when it's doing its calculation. So those go in parentheses. You start with a parenthesis, and then Excel gives us clues. It tells us what it needs to know. First thing is the lookup value. What value are we going to be looking up? That's going to be 6848. We could type that in, but it's a lot easier just to click on it. And there it is. It's in N17. N17. Okay, next, comma. So there's a comma between each one of these. Table array. Well, what's the table array? It's this table. So we're going to select all that just by dragging across it. And you see it says N6, colon means 2, Q14. Okay, so now we've got the table. And you notice Excel has color-coded it so you can see what relates to what. Okay, next thing, column index number. We want to get our answer out of the the fourth column. We're interested in occupation, so that's column 4. So we'll just type that in. And then you can either have true or false. There are two different versions of Vlookup, and we're going to be using them both. There's an approximate match, and you might wonder, why would you want an approximate match? And you'll see later. In this case, we want an exact match. We want to find exactly 6848. We don't want to find 6849 or anybody else. So we want an exact match. So it writes false in there. And we've given it everything it needs. So we're going to close up our parentheses, and there it is. Now, when we hit enter, we get the answer. We immediately get the answer. And the answer is sales. Yes, 6848. That person's occupation is sales. So that's Vlookup with exact match. Sometimes your data is in pieces. I'm going to show you how to use Vlookup to put it all together into normalized form. Take a look at the sheet Lookup. Here we have some data from a custom clothing store. List of the customers, information on them, list of the different styles of the various items, and finally the purchases. Who bought what? Now they'd like to be able to answer questions like which style sold the most, or what item appeals most to, say, older customers or to engineers, and what style did a particular customer buy in the past. But the data is scattered all over the place. What we'd like to do is put it all into a single file in normalized form where each purchase has all the information related to it. We already have the column headers here, so let's use Vlookup to fill it in. Equals Vlookup. First thing to look up is the value. Okay, the age, this is the age of the customer. So we're going to be looking up this customer in the customer table. Hold it down in place by selecting, before you move on, Control T, or on the Mac, Command T. Comma, okay, next thing, column index number. So we're looking for age, that's column 2. And we want exact match. And that's it. And that works. Now, if we double click on the fill handle here, it fills it all the way down. Let's check some of these. Let's see, item number 6, customer 1900. Customer 1900 is 48 years old. Customer 1900 is 48 years old. Okay, now it's your turn. You try it. Fill in this column for style, and this is the style of the item that they bought. We're going to be using Vlookup again. Equals Vlookup. We can actually just select it here. And the first thing we want is the lookup value. This is going to be related to the item. So we're going to look up this item number in the item's data. And again, we want to hold that in place. Next is the column index. There are only 2 columns, and the style is column 2. And we want to choose false. That work? Okay, item number 4 is casual. Yes, it is. And double click on that, and it fills it all in for us. Now, we still have these other 2 columns we'd like to fill in. Here's something we can do. If we look at this formula, it's pretty close to what we're going to want over here, isn't it? And we can autofill it across. Not only autofill down, we can autofill across. But what's going to happen is this L6 is going to move across, and we're going to end up in the wrong column. So what we need to do is we want to make sure we always pull it out of column L. So I'll put a $sign in front of that. Okay, it still works. And now I'll run this across. But you see, it's still giving us the age. And what we need to do here is look in a different column. So instead of the age column, which is number 2, we want the gender, which is column 3. Okay, and this one, we want column 4 as occupation. Now we can take both of these and fill them down to the bottom. And there we have our whole table. Now I'm going to show you how to put numbers into bins using Vlookup. If you may recall, when we were looking at the bank data, age was numerical and we wanted to turn it into bins so we could make it a category for the pivot tables. Same thing with balance. We wanted to put that into categories, and the categories were predefined for us. You might recall we could use grouping to do this, where Excel figures out how big those bins are going to be, but sometimes you get predefined ones. So let's look at how you would do that. Here we're given some particular categories. We're told these are the categories we want to use for the ages. These are the ones that the customer, say, is interested in. So how do you do that? We want to replace these ages with these categories. Well, the first thing you do is make a list of your categories, and we have that. And then next to each one, what's the smallest number in each category? So this is 0, this is 25, this is 40, this is 55, and this is 71. Now over here I'm going to make another column, which I'm going to call age bin And we're going to use the other version of Vlookup, equals Vlookup of lookup value. What are we looking up? We're looking up the age. And we're going to go into what table? This table. And again, we want to keep that in place. And next is the column index 2. And do we want an approximate match or an exact match? This time we want an approximate match. And what this is going to do is it's going to search through the table until it finds something that's too large, and then it's going to back off. So let's see, for example, what happened here. Age 30. So what it's going to do is it's going to go through this table. 0 smaller, 25 smaller, 40 is bigger, back off, and it chooses 25 to 39. That's the way it works. And now we can, as we did before, get that fill handle, double click on it, and it fills it all out. And we can check some of these. Did they put people in the right bins? And it did. Now it's your turn. You may want to pause the video for this one. Put the balance values, here's the balance, in the following categories. Those owing at least 100. In other words, their balance is less than or equal to negative 100. Those owing less than 100, so that's less than 0, but more than negative 100. Exactly 0, 1 to 99, 100 to 499, 500 to 2,000, and over 2,000. Okay, let's fill in that balance bin. First, we need to give it the numbers that define the edges of our categories. We're going to assume anybody who owes the bank more than $1 million is no longer a customer. So that's going to be the very bottom. And then this one, it says it's going to start at negative 99. This one is 0, 1, 100, 500, and 2001. Okay, now that we have that, we can give our formula. And again, we're going to use equals Vlookup, open paren, lookup value. We're going to be looking up the balance, comma, in the table array. So we select that. Here's our table. That stuff over there is just comments. It's not part of the table. And we want to hold that in place. Comma, what's next? Index number. We want the second column where the categories are, comma. And do we want an approximate match? Yes, we do, because we're looking for bins and not exact matches. There we go, 500 to 2,000, and it's 1787, so that works. And we double click and fill it all the way down. This looks good. So we're done.